This stop is South Street and Whitehall Street. Next stop, Water Street and Broad Street. This stop is Water Street and Broad Street. Next stop, Water Street and Old Slip. This stop is Water Street and Old Slip. Next stop, Water Street and Wall Street. This stop is Water Street and Wall Street. Next stop, Pearl Street and Fulton Street. This stop is Pearl Street and Fulton Street. Next stop, Pearl Street and Peck Slip. This stop is Pearl Street and Peck Slip. Next stop, St. James Place and Robert F. Wagner SR Place. Transfer available to M22. This stop is St. James Place and Robert F. Wagner SR Place. Next stop, Madison Street and Oliver Street. This stop is Madison Street and Oliver Street. Next stop, Madison Street and Market Street. This stop is Madison Street and Market Street. Next stop, Pike Street and Madison Street. Transfer available to M22. This stop is Pike Street and Madison Street. Next stop, Pike Street and Division Street. Transfer available to M9. This stop is Pyle Street and Division Street. Next stop, Allen Street and Grand Street. Transfers available to the B&D trains. This stop is Allen Street and Grand Street. Next stop, Allen Street and Delancey Street. Transfers available to the F, J, M and Z trains, M9, M14 ASBS and B39. This stop is Allen Street and Delancey Street. Next stop, Allen Street and Stanton Street. This stop is Allen Street and Stanton Street. Next stop, First Avenue and East 2nd Street. Transfers available to the F train and M21. This stop is First Avenue and East 2nd Street. Next stop, First Avenue and 4th Street. This stop is First Avenue and 4th Street. Next stop, First Avenue and St. Mark's Place. Transfer available to M8. This stop is First Avenue and St. Mark's Place. Next stop, First Avenue and East 11th Street. This stop is First Avenue and East 11th Street. Next stop, First Avenue and East 14th Street. Transfers available to the L train, M14 ASBS and M14 DSBS. This stop is First Avenue and East 14th Street. Next stop, First Avenue and East 17th Street. This stop is First Avenue and East 17th Street. Next stop, First Avenue and East 20th Street. Transfer available to M23 SBS. This stop is First Avenue and East 20th Street. Next stop, First Avenue and East 23rd Street. Transfers available to M9, M23 SBS and M34A SBS. This stop is First Avenue and East 23rd Street. Next stop, First Avenue and East 25th Street. This stop is First Avenue and East 25th Street. Next stop, First Avenue and East 27th Street. This stop is First Avenue and East 27th Street. Next stop, First Avenue and East 28th Street. This stop is First Avenue and East 28th Street. Next stop, First Avenue and East 31st Street. This stop is First Avenue and East 31st Street. Next stop, First Avenue and East 34th Street. Transfers available to M34 SBS and M34A SBS. This stop is First Avenue and East 34th Street. Next stop, First Avenue and East 36th Street. This stop is First Avenue and East 36th Street. Next stop, First Avenue and East 39th Street. This stop is First Avenue and East 39th Street. Next stop, First Avenue and East 42nd Street. Transfer available to M42. This stop is First Avenue and East 42nd Street. Next stop, First Avenue and East 45th Street. This stop is First Avenue and East 45th Street. Next stop, First Avenue and Mitchell Place. Transfer available to M50. This stop is First Avenue and Mitchell Place. Next stop, First Avenue and East 52nd Street. This stop is First Avenue and East 52nd Street. Next stop, First Avenue and East 55th Street. This stop is First Avenue and East 55th Street. Next stop, First Avenue and East 57th Street. Transfers available to M31 and M57. This stop is First Avenue and East 57th Street. Next stop, First Avenue and East 60th Street. Transfers available to Q32, Q60 and Q101. This stop is First Avenue and East 60th Street. Next stop, First Avenue and East 62nd Street. This stop is First Avenue and East 62nd Street. Next stop, First Avenue and East 64th Street. This stop is First Avenue and East 64th Street. Next stop, First Avenue and East 67th Street. Transfer available to M66. This stop is First Avenue and East 67th Street. Next stop, First Avenue and East 70th Street. This stop is First Avenue and East 70th Street. Next stop, First Avenue and East 72nd Street. Transfer available to M72. This stop is First Avenue and East 72nd Street. Next stop, First Avenue and East 75th Street. This stop is First Avenue and East 75th Street. Next stop, First Avenue and East 77th Street. This stop is First Avenue and East 77th Street. Next stop, First Avenue and East 79th Street. Transfer available to M79 SBS. This stop is First Avenue and East 79th Street. Next stop, First Avenue and East 82nd Street. This stop is First Avenue and East 82nd Street. Next stop, First Avenue and East 86th Street. Transfer available to M86 SBS. This stop is First Avenue and East 86th Street. Next stop, First Avenue and East 89th Street. This stop is First Avenue and East 89th Street. Next stop, First Avenue and East 93rd Street. Transfers available to M31 and M86 SBS. This stop is First Avenue and East 93rd Street. Next stop, First Avenue and East 97th Street. Transfer available to M96. This stop is First Avenue and East 97th Street. Next stop, First Avenue and East 99th Street. This stop is First Avenue and East 99th Street. Next stop, First Avenue and East 102nd Street. This stop is First Avenue and East 102nd Street. Next stop, First Avenue and East 106th Street. Transfer available to M106. This stop is First Avenue and East 106th Street. Next stop, First Avenue and East 108th Street. This stop is First Avenue and East 108th Street. Next stop, First Avenue and East 111th Street. This stop is First Avenue and East 111th Street. Next stop, First Avenue and East 113th Street. This stop is First Avenue and East 113th Street. Next stop, First Avenue and East 116th Street. Transfer available to M116. This stop is First Avenue and East 116th Street. Next stop, First Avenue and East 120th Street. This stop is First Avenue and East 120th Street. Next stop, First Avenue and Palladino Avenue. This stop is First Avenue and Palladino Avenue. Next stop, First Avenue and East 125th Street. Transfer available to M125. This stop is First Avenue and East 125th Street. Next stop, East 126th Street and 2nd Avenue. Transfers available to M35, M60 SBS and M125. This is the last stop. This stop is East 126th Street and 2nd Avenue. This is M15 to East Harlem 125 Street. A fare is required to ride.